The Art of Leadership Network.
Hey leaders, welcome to the Lead Culture Podcast, part of the Art of Leadership Network. I'm your host, Jenni Catron, CEO of the Slingshot Group. We're a company dedicated to helping leaders develop thriving teams. Each week, I'll be your guide as we explore practical strategies to equip you with the tools you need to lead with clarity, confidence, and build unstoppable momentum in your organization. My mission is to be your trusted coach, empowering you to master the art of self-leadership so you'll learn to lead yourself well so you can lead others better. Each week, we take a deep dive on a leadership or a culture topic. You'll hear stories from amazing guests and leaders like you who are committed to leading well. So let's dive in and keep learning on this leadership journey together. Today, I am joined by two friends that I have grown to just really appreciate. We have such a similar heart for leadership, culture, building great teams. And so I'm joined by Tim Foote and Phil Bowdle from the Slingshot Group. Now, Slingshot is an organization that serves churches and faith-based nonprofits really in every area of staffing and coaching. And so we have a lot of shared heart and alignment around how to build great teams and what that looks like. And that's what we dive into today. I ask Phil and Tim about what they're seeing, the patterns and trends they're seeing in hiring. What are some of the challenges and some of the things that we're facing? What's important to people when they're considering joining an organization? What are they expecting from their culture? And so they give us just some really valuable insight that I think you're going to find both helpful, encouraging, and getting you thinking about how to invest in and build a healthy team. So here's my conversation with Tim and Phil. Tim and Phil, I'm so excited for you guys to join me today. We get a chance here and there to connect, and when we do, we're always talking all kinds of random things like we did before we hit record.
Right.
But I'm really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you guys. One of the things I love about Slingshot is just the shared passion that both of our organizations have for building great teams. You know, we just deeply believe in the importance of teams being healthy and thriving. And you guys very specifically help organizations find those right fits. So I'd love for you to give people maybe just a little overview of the work Slingshot does. And then I want you to dive into what are you seeing, patterns, trends, what's going on in the search world right now. And that'll probably kick off our conversation. But maybe fill in everybody who might not be familiar with Slingshot, give them a little overview of what you guys do.
Yeah, well, Jenni, we love this partnership just because it's a hand-in-glove partnership for us, because our overall mission is that we build remarkable teams through staffing and coaching. And so for us, it's all about healthy teams, whether that be helping your leader get to the next level, helping assess your team health, or finding the missing people for your team. It's all about how you have the right remarkable team to achieve your remarkable mission. And then that plays beautifully into culture. One of the main things we're seeing is that culture is the leading draw card for people joining teams, for people being a part of this mission. No longer is salary the most important thing. It's about development. It's about lifestyle. It's about mission. And ultimately, it's about culture. It's about clarity around an organization's identity, because identity determines function and mission momentum. And so we're seeing those deep questions. It used to be that an organization would be interviewing the potential candidate or leader. It's often now the other way around. And those questions are around who are you? Tell me about your mission. Why am I going to want to show up every day at work and be a part of this? It's about clarity around mission and around the healthy culture of it. The soul, was it Ralph Waldo Emerson who likened culture to the soul? It's the soul of the organization.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's fascinating that you're seeing that even in what, candidates want from their employer, and that there's almost a reversal of they're interviewing the organization just as much as the organization is interviewing them. I'd be curious, are you seeing people not choose to take a job because of what they observe about culture?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, and the thing about that is it's really it's observed in the way of it's there's often a difference between what people say about their culture and what they actually experience. And so the conversations
Sure.
Before an interview versus what happens in person when you get the sense and feel the culture beyond maybe just the leader is where that sharpening process happens in any kind of interview process. And that's where it really gets vital for both the interviewer and the interviewee to both be asking the right questions to lean in. Is this the right fit? Is this the right culture where I can actually see myself in? No doubt.
Yeah. I'm curious, how are you prepping organizations? Because you guys do such an intentional job of making sure when you're going to work with an organization and help them find a fit, making sure they're ready for the fit. And then also then making sure you're finding the right candidate for them. Do you find that they lack some clarity of their culture? Like, are you having to do a little coaching them up for clarity on that so that you can help them find a good match?
Yeah, remarkable organizations, Jenny, are always rehearsing who they are. They're always reminding themselves who they are. That's why a part of our model has always been a site visit, because we want to get on site. We want to learn about the organization because effectively we're on staff, we're adjunct staff at the organization for the length of a coaching engagement or a search.
Yeah.
And we believe that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. And so we have to work out what is needed in that organization. And they're obvious conversations. This is part of the partnership we love with Foresight, is that once we get on site, if that culture is not healthy, we are not going to sign a search contract.
Wow.
Because we're not going to be about placing a person in or a leader in an unhealthy situation. We're going to call Jenny and her team and say, help. We need you to bring some health to this situation, so then we can come in. It's all about the ecosystem of how we continue to build kingdom teams, kingdom organizations.
That's right.
So yeah, we see that. We will often see a lack of clarity, and we'll encourage them towards that. We think of it on a spectrum of toxic to dysfunctional to functional to remarkable, and we'll often see dysfunction. Every organization has some kind of dysfunction they've got to keep in check.
Sure.
Most organizations fall in the functional category. The toxic ones, Jenny, well, let's have you back on our podcast and we can talk about that and how to fix that. But how can we help get the kind of clarity that will lead towards remarkable? What would you add, Phil?
Yeah, it's anytime we get to sit across other leaders and other teams, I always try to notice what we notice. What stands out, and there can be good, bad, and ugly to that. And sometimes there's some things that have been lurking in the background that the leader or leadership may be blind to in the organization, that is helpful to have an outside voice to step in, like you've seen, like we've seen, to help coach and encourage some next steps. But what's more fun is when we get to notice what we notice of the beautiful, incredible things that are happening, the leaders that are serving behind the scenes that nobody's seeing, but we get to encounter the leaders that have something special about how they work with each other or how they hide. Like those are the remarkable things that sometimes they are blind to because they're just living in it, and they need somebody from the outside to say, look at how special this is, and don't lose that. Keep fighting for it.
Gosh, I love that, Phil, because you're right. And we see that in the work we do. And you naming it of how you guys see it. It's you go in and there are things that's just familiar to them. And there are occasions where I'll walk in and work with a organization and I'll be like, this is really rare and special. And because it's what they know, they don't even realize what a gift it is that their team operates this way, or, whatever the behavior or value is that they're really living into. And having somebody also call out what's good, because, for leaders, we're always troubleshooting what's not working, right? Like we always see the things that aren't working. And particularly, and you can clarify this for me if I'm off the mark, but when you have an open position or two, you're just you're underwater, especially in ministry context, because rarely are we overstaffed. So you have an open position or two, you're just trying to stay afloat until you get somebody in that seat. And then you become, you don't have time to pay attention to the things that are good, and having people call that out is really actually quite special as well. So I love that. I love that acknowledgement.
Often, Jenny, with an open role in your team, you're just in survival mode. And that's the work we love to do, is to come in and help people just get their eyes up and see what you just mentioned, see what's beautiful about this organization and why people would be drawn to joining this team.
Sure. Yep, completely. What else are team members looking for when they're looking at organizations? Culture, you said, is a growing conversation of, hey, what's it like to be here? What's this ecosystem like? Well, I enjoy this. What else is standing out as important to people when they're considering a role right now?
I think one thing that stands out is they're asking more questions than you realize. They're asking not just what would this job look like. They're asking what would my life look like if I take a step into serving and working with this organization. So it's broader. It's maybe a broader category than sometimes what we think, and it can be a superpower for us if we tap into that, because they're not asking just tell me my job description. They're saying, what would my family situation look like if I moved here or stepped into this role? What's my financial situation? What's the location and the freedom or flexibility it has? Like, there's a lot more life situations that are coming into play that people are actually asking about. And the smart, remarkable teams that we're seeing are the ones that are aware of that, sensitive to that, and are constantly making little tweaks to make sure that they are attracting and keeping and retaining their top leaders that they can build with and build around.
That's good.
Yeah, again, hiring managers need to remember that they are being interviewed. Like just what you said, all of those things, Phil. And leaders are looking for development opportunities and relational value way more than they ever have in the past. I mean, we all know that the seas of hiring, chemistry as part of that has become so elevated and so important. And we see gaps in hiring teams giving attention to this, because as leaders, we need to be thinking context, coaching, and care. Like part of your responsibility is stewarding the present and future of each person on your team. That's good culture, right, Jenny? It's realizing you're stewarding your leaders. So how you hire matters, how you fire matters, how you handle conflict matters, how you give feedback matters, and how you steward each and every person under your leadership absolutely matters. Good stewardship and care is encouraging growth. So important. That's what people are looking for.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm usually not on the hiring side of things, but I will be in the thick of it with organizations, and we'll hear the team are asking, when I'm doing surveys, when I'm doing culture surveys, well, things like the desire for more training and development, or the flexibility because of family dynamics, like you're just hearing that shift in what's important to them. And I think sometimes for those of us who grew up in a work world that was a little bit different. I joke that I'm just old enough to remember before we had computers that, could be shut down and put in our bag to go home, or, phones that went everywhere and you could talk to everybody. I mean, I literally came to work, booted up my computer, worked all day, shut it down, went home. And unless it was
Imagine.
It kind of was glorious. Now you look back on it, because unless it was a true emergency and somebody was calling your home phone, you didn't talk to coworkers when you went home at night.
Right.
And now it's so integrated. And I think there's also some wonderful and beautiful things about that. And it's the world we live in. But because it's so integrated, team members want to make sure that this is a place that I want my whole life to be, integrated. I remember when I took the job out in California. So I had been in Nashville 20 years, and deep connections, relationships, community. And, of course I had been working at a church, and, I always thought, gosh, when we invited people to come on the staff, this is an amazing place. And clearly I loved culture. So I was always trying to make sure the environment was fantastic for our team. Didn't always meet that mark, but that was the goal. But I would, we would bring people on, and if somebody didn't immediately fit and connect. I was always confused by it because I just loved the place. I loved everything we did. Like, and when I made the move to California and we completely uprooted and were, merging into a new culture, a new organization, my eyes were opened to the impact it is on a team member when they join your team. Yeah. That, you feel like it's amazing and wonderful, but for that new employee and their family, I mean, everything is upended and disrupted, especially if they're relocating. And it gave me so much greater compassion. I wish I had had that experience a lot sooner in my journey because it gave me so much compassion for what it takes for somebody to really connect and thrive in a new organization. Yeah. Do you guys add or
Well, Jenni, I would say too, knowing some of your story, not only were you shifting organizational culture, but you were shifting massive culture in the state that you moved to and the part of the state that you moved to. I mean, I remember when I moved in ministry years and years ago from the other side of the world, and you're not only navigating organizational culture, you're navigating culture. And so it's being sensitive to that too. I would also say, and it's a bit of a topic shift, that what people are looking for, and this goes without saying, but because we're in staffing, we should say it. So many people are looking for remote roles. So many people are looking for remote roles. And if there's a possibility that you can make a role remote, and we understand why people need to be in office. We get it. Sure. And we're not afraid of it as recruiters. We'll step into whatever it needs to be. But you will open up your candidate pool dramatically if there's an opportunity for there to be remote work involved. Sure. But also, you know this, Jenni, you got to work harder now, especially post-pandemic, on your culture if it is a virtual team. Right. You've got to work really, really carefully on that. Anything you'd add, Phil?
The thought that comes to mind too is, and Tim mentioned this earlier, the power dynamic is different when people are thinking about different situations, applying for roles, joining a team, all those things that you talked about. What I noticed in years past, and often even in some organizations now, they kind of have there's a little bit of a power position for the hiring leader or manager of like, all right, let's see if you fit us. Let's see what you got. And they lose so many opportunities to actually be the recruiter and the person to be able to help facilitate, is this the right match for us and for you? And really, that's what the person is looking for as they consider all those giant questions of, am I ready to move to California? Am I ready to uproot what I've built all these years before? It takes somebody that gets it. And there's just not a whole lot of room for top leaders to sit across somebody and consider, am I going to make a major move here with somebody that they feel like doesn't get them on that? So don't lose the opportunity to be the recruiter, regardless of if you have the ultimate decision. You still have a big role to play to actually and create an environment that somebody wants to be attracted to and move their life towards.
Yeah, that's huge. There was I'm trying to remember, I quoted this statistic somewhere in my in the book, but now I'm trying to remember it. But something like 33% of people don't last beyond the first 30 days or something. Like, you guys probably have better stats for that than I do, but it was some alarming statistic of how, how many people don't last beyond the first 30 days. And I know obviously that's a big reason why we engage organizations like you guys in Slingshot to say, hey, help us find a really good fit, because that disruption is so intense. How are you coaching leaders when they do bring a new recruit, somebody new to the organization? How are you coaching them to ensure that person has a good, first 30, 90-day experience?
One of the most underestimated powerful things you do as an organization is your onboarding process.
Right.
And so we've talked a lot with organizations about how to be way more intentional. It's like what you said happened or you experienced in California, a whole different perspective about how you start at an organization. And so we talk a lot about giving attention to the onboarding process. We also include in every search a resource for the first 90 days that is led by the supervisor. We sometimes we will be the coach, but it's important for the supervisor to be the hero. Because
Right.
if you have an outside person coaching through the first 90 days, and sometimes it's needed and we do it and it's great, but sometimes that can cause it to be a bit of a therapy session about the dysfunction in the organization. And as we know, every organization has some level of dysfunction they need to keep in check. You work on that all the time, Jenni, in the work that you do. But this resource is so important to us that we just include it in every search.
Brilliant.
Because we want the supervisor and the new team member to be intentional about how they engage and how they learn the story of the organization, how their story fits in. I mean, our favorite work is seeing how the mission of the leader and the mission of the organization line up and the stories intertwine. You got to celebrate that in the first 90 days. You've got to lean into how you fit into that story. We need to do the constant work of assessing culture and how that person is fitting into culture. One of our co-founders, when a new person will join the Slingshot team, always used to say, "Our culture just changed today." Mm-hmm. And being able to verbalize how it's changed and celebrate how it's changed because that new team member has joined. And so often we fall into the complacency trap of focusing only on the urgent and not working on the important work of healthy culture. And that plays into retaining people, because we've all talked about quiet quitting. We've all talked about quiet staying. We're hearing all of these new terms now, and we've got to address it. And the only way we can address it is to keep working on healthy culture. So important. And that's going to be the answer to the risky stage, which is those first 90 days. Phil?
Yeah, I just echo, so much of what you said, Tim, dead on. And I think, we're definitely not seeing that as much in our work because we're able to help facilitate some of those blind spots that either the leader or the organization may have, which is part of the, blessing we get to be able to be that set of eyes and everything. But I do think there is a decline and less of a stigma around leaders that are just going to stick it out because they don't want it to look bad on their resume. That patience level is not as high. So it's not as unusual for the organizations or people that is a norm, in the way of you're always building your team. You're never done. And as soon as you think you've done something, somebody schedules a meeting and you're not done. So the best, most remarkable teams are always building. They're always leading. And especially when it comes to culture, the worst situations is when you talk to a leader that had to step away so quickly, not because they didn't like the job or the opportunity, but it was because the culture was toxic. And what they told about the culture, what they told about the organization is not what they showed. So it should always be show and tell. And that's the most important thing that's why it's really important for stepping into a role that you're doing the interviewing as well, to make sure it's the right fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the strength of, I've been in the seat, especially in a ministry context where, budgets are lean, budgets are tight, and you decide, okay, we're going to do the search on our own. And I think the beauty of being able to engage with Slingshot, is the third party who can really help you identify the things that you can't see, give you that support and that coaching to help reinforce those blind spots, or illuminate the blind spots really more accurately. Yeah. And I would just encourage folks, we always are kind of, juggling all of those priorities, and resources are a big part of the factor, but being able to have somebody help facilitate a good fit, that really is a fit on both sides is such a gift. So when in doubt.
One thing to add to that is, what we're finding is the days of posting and hoping are kind of over. There's we put it on the website, we just aren't getting the same applicants that we thought before. Often we're talking with organizations at that desperation stage, and stuff. But posting and hoping is not going to work for the vast majority of organizations. And one of the things that we find so often is that it kind of takes a advocate, somebody that is outside of the organization, to say, hey, I see this in you. I see everything that you're looking for in career opportunity, calling, all these things fit really nicely with this organization that you've never heard of, that's in a location that wasn't on your radar. But I see an opportunity here. Maybe you should have a conversation. Like, it almost takes that level of relational network in different pools of people to make some of those connections that are not happening as organically as they may be used to and stuff. So
that's really good.
When we get together as a team, Jenny, some of our favorite stories are those ones that Phil just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
When we went back to a potential leader, a candidate, and said, I know this wasn't on your list, your filter for where you want it to be, but you need to take a look at this. Because our number one value is spirit-led. And often as associates, we're getting this nudging. Hey, go back and talk to this person. And that's the favorite part of our work. But going back to outsourcing search, it's false economy to think you're saving money doing it yourself.
Completely.
Because it's ministry hours.
Made that mistake.
Yeah, you are spending so many ministry hours managing a search that we have systems and processes for. And not only that,
and you're the experts in it.
Well,
yeah.
And we want to be the expert in your organization. We want to come in and get to know the unique thumbprint God has given you to place on building the kingdom, and then go find the person. We extend your reach. Go find the person who's going to fit your culture to help move your remarkable mission forward.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. I want to go back to something we kind of hit on a smidge, but you talked about the hiring manager and how critical it is for that hiring manager to be engaged with that employee those first 90 days, building that relationship, helping equip them, help them find their culture fit, et cetera. And that's one of the things I'm seeing a lot in our work is that a lot of the, what I'll say, my kind of mid-level managers, not always the executive team, but like the people who are managing the other staff and even volunteers in the organization, there is a gap in competency when it comes to people management that is a big part of some of the erosion of culture in some cases, because those individuals just may have been promoted into managing others, but without any equipping of how to manage others well. And so I'd love for you guys to maybe speak to that. If you're seeing that, there's the age-old Gallup research that says we don't quit jobs, we quit bosses. And so I'd just be curious how you all respond to that. What do you see about helping ensure we're equipping our people managers to lead well? How are you coaching around that, et cetera?
You start first, Bill. I'll follow up.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things come to mind, honestly.
Sorry, I kind of gave you a big question, didn't I?
I mean, there's so much burden on the boss, honestly. And what burdens me is, a lot of the nonprofits, a lot of the churches, a lot of the leaders that are stepping into those roles are not stepping into that role with years and years of experience, saying, yeah, right, I'll just do what I did before. We're good. No, they're stepping in like, okay, I'm leveling up. I'm taking a step of faith, and Lord, help me. I don't know what I'm doing. Somebody help me figure this out. And so I think all of us need a therapist and a coach, no doubt, because we all need somebody that sees something that we're not seeing and helps and is rooting for us and cheering us on and setting us up for success. But I think the best leaders and environments are ones where they're not trying to have all the answers. They're just trying to set themselves and their team up for success. Good leadership is just doing that. It's not always having the smartest answer. It's doing that. Right. And I think when it comes to leaders that are leaving bosses, it's often when they feel like they think they have all the answers, but they don't. They don't even know how to ask the right questions. So I feel the burden for the leaders so often because the pipeline in so many of the roles in nonprofit and church ministry is not what it used to be. So it is taking a lot of people coming into saying, okay, I'm the boss now, or I'm the leader, and I've got blind spots, but I gotta learn on the fly. And so I need people around me that are going to encourage me, and also the freedom to not always have the answer, but to just try to have the posture to ask the right question to be able to help us all as a team go somewhere remarkable.
Yeah,
that's great.
Jenny, it's interesting. You hit on something that we hear a lot. We do executive leader cohorts. And often what most of them will say they need is management courses for their directors because they don't know how to manage. And that what can happen there is what Phil said. They start to think they need to have all the answers, and they absolutely don't have the answers. And they need to remember to listen and ask great questions. They need to practice care management and then manage care, because connection is so important. If people don't feel like they're cared for, they're not gonna go after the mission for you. That's the bedrock, right, Jenny, of healthy culture. It's the work you do. And then inviting buy-in and additional voices. Like if you're having regular one-on-ones with the people you're leading, let them drive the agenda, and then you just add the things that don't come up during the conversation, because that's the best way to find out where your team members are and the kind of support you need to give them, and how you need to lead them, and how you need to develop them. And then you getting additional voices as the leader in your life that can help you continue to manage and lead and coach in a healthy way.
So good. So good. I could keep asking questions around that, because there's so many good nuggets in there. But I have two questions to wrap up with, but this one first. You and I think we've talked about this offline, that we all feel like we'd love to be in a scenario where we put ourselves out of a job, that Slingshot and Foresight weren't necessary because teams were thriving and healthy. Right. They had amazing cultures. Everybody's in the right seat, doing the right work. Our leaders are, remarkable. Like, we would love that. I would love for you guys to share, what are some of the characteristics of the most remarkable teams? Like, what are they doing? What are those leaders and those teams doing that would make us obsolete?
I think they have a great sense of who they are. I think they realize that everything they do communicates their culture, everything they do. And so they're very intentional not to make assumptions. I think they prioritize connection and care. I think they give a ton of priority around taking risks and growing and having a culture where you can be free to fail, to learn, to be better. I think that they are always keeping the mission in front of them and remembering their why, so that people are inspired every day to keep moving forward in the most healthy way. They're not just words on a wall or your website. They actually drive everything you do, and you can see that flowing through the organization. Bill?
So good.
How do you top that? No, that's great.
That's a pretty good list.
So I'm not going to get the one thing.
I left you some.
The thread underneath, I think so much of that is conviction. There's a lot of
that's a good word.
Functional teams out there that are doing good work. They are making it. They're maybe mixing from doing good to survival mode. That's a lot. But I think underneath all remarkable, the most remarkable is like a conviction that just drives them, that gets them up in the morning, that helps them to know when to say yes and take that calculated risk, but also when to say no, or when to hire, when to fire, when to turn down dollar signs just because it doesn't match that core conviction that they would stand for and do anything for. So I think underneath that, we need more leaders that are in that spot where they know their mission is their conviction, and everything just aligns, because when you have that, man, it's contagious. Like, there's nothing better than seeing a leader just so fired up, not because of conviction about them, but a conviction that's bigger than them and a mission that's bigger than them. There's nothing more powerful than when you get to see that and experience that.
Jenny, I love how aligned we are around wanting to put ourselves out of a job. I call it.
I'm really hoping that's what I remember us having a conversation about. But
I call it the kingdom first principle. I imagine for you, it's seeing so many cultures that are healthy that then you start shifting your work to scaling them. Completely. And then for us, it's seeing organizations that are developing leaders from within.
Yes.
And there's always a bench, and people are eager to step up. I remember a mentor of mine at Slingshot years ago saying, hey, if you're growing this organization, you won't be doing the same job in a couple of years. That's been my story. That's been Phil's story.
Completely true. Yep.
Yeah, it's encouraging this internal farm system where we're raising up leaders, and some of those leaders are going out to other organizations and helping those organizations move forward. But you've always got that bench. And so that's our eternal vision. And we just keep our eyes fixed on that.
Yeah, I love it so much. I love it. Oh, this is so good, you guys. Tell everybody how they can learn more about what you guys do, where to connect, etc. Send them all the places they need to go.
Come on, Phil.
Our biggest thing is we want you to know we're in your corner. So if you have an issue when it comes to staffing, coaching, any of that, more than anything else, we want you to know you can reach out. We'd love to just have you back and support you. Go to slingshotgroup.org where you can find out more about staffing and coaching. But on there as well, you'll find information about podcasts that Jenni, you've been an amazing guest on as well, and get to learn from you and so many others that we're learning from as well. But all of it is really just to help you be the remarkable team that can help accomplish that remarkable mission. So yeah, any of those things would be an option to be able to learn more about us and connect with us.
Perfect. You guys, thank you so much. Thanks for your heart to invest in leaders to help build great teams, ultimately to help us accomplish the mission God's called us to. So appreciate the work that y'all do, and really grateful you joined me today.
Thanks, Jenni.
Thank you.
Appreciate you too and all you do.
All right, friends, again, so helpful to process with other leaders, hear what they're seeing, and I'm sure you resonated with some of what they shared today. So I want to encourage you to reach out. If we can support you, if we can help you on your leadership or your culture building journey, that's what my team and I are here to do. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't gotten the Culture Matters book, you got to get it. We're hearing so many fantastic stories from leaders who are saying, this is the playbook that I need to help me be intentional and be strategic about culture. And so go to culturemattersbook.com. If you order it from the website, I'm going to send you a signed copy. So culturemattersbook.com. We also are continuing to add resources to the way we support you in facilitating the framework. So courses, workshops. And so just reach out to me at Jenni Catron at getforesight.com if you'd love to connect with one of our coaches to learn more about how we can help you facilitate the lead culture framework. We would love to talk to you about doing that. So just email me, Jenni Catron at getforesight.com. All right, friends, let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Connect with us on Instagram or Facebook at Get Foresight, or on LinkedIn at the Foresight Group. And if you haven't reviewed the podcast, leave us a review. Maybe you're brand new and you've just been checking it out and digging back through the archives on some of our culture episodes. Leave us a review. So incredibly helpful when other people hear from you and know that you find the content valuable. All right, friends, keep leading well, and we'll see you next week.